There's been plenty of excitement for silver this month. We had that gap up, that squeeze, whatever we want to call it, in early Feb, 1st of Feb, just through $30 an ounce. Then, of course, gave up those gains really quickly and traded back to $26 a few days later. We've recovered since then. So what happens next? Is the next move for silver back up and through $30? If it does do that, what are the targets? Or actually, have we already seen the highs for quite some time for the price of silver? I think silver is always an interesting market to look at, and we always try and have a trade on. We did have that gap higher beginning of the month. You can see it in a bit more context here on the daily chart. It punched through the highs from August of last year very briefly by a few cents, and since then it's fallen back. So we've had short-term volatility, short-term excitement, but I still think the recovery for silver is still going. So in this video, I'll talk a bit more about the pros and cons for further gains in the price of silver this year. We'll take a look at the chart in more detail and we'll see if we can set a trade up. We did have trades on coming into February, but took profits after that surge up through 30. I think silver is actually a more interesting market than gold at the moment. So we'll talk a bit more about that and see if we can get another trade on. In the last video, I did put an order in for silver in case it went racing away. So I had an order in to buy if it got to $30.20. Clearly that hasn't happened. That order's not so relevant. Let's get rid of it. We do have our usual mix of trades running. The best performer so far this year has been crude oil. So we're up about £2,000 and a bit more on the various trades done on crude this year because we've seen a great run there. But let's focus on silver because I do think there is an opportunity. This recovery is still going. I'll talk a bit more about what's been driving it. We'll come back onto this and see if we can get our trade set up. Hello, I'm David Jones from Capital.com, and I thought we'd do an update for silver. It's been an interesting month so far. We saw that surge at the beginning of the month, ended up being pretty short-lived. So I thought, well, let's do an update. Now things have returned perhaps more back to normal and see what the next few weeks, next few months might hold. As usual, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could click on subscribe. It does help support the channel. And of course, now we've started doing these regular live streams every Friday, 2:30 at UK time in the afternoon. They are proving popular week on, week out. So thanks very much for attending those if you're making them. And if you're subscribed with the alarm bell notification clicked, you get a notification from YouTube just as we're about to go live. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's get into today's video and talk a bit more about the price of silver. So like I say, we had quite a lot of excitement at the beginning of the month with silver very briefly moving above $30 an ounce. If we went back to the November low and where it was beginning of Feb, we saw the market rally up by about 37%. So it's a big move in a short number of months. But that move through $30 proved to be pretty short-lived. What was causing it, or what was rumored to cause it, was you'll probably remember some of the excitement there was around the GameStop share price because it was being targeted by the Wall Street Bets forum on Reddit. There was rumor that the next target, or one of the next targets, was the silver ETF. So that was a lot of talk over the weekend ahead of that surge that silver was the next target. So we did see silver gap up at the beginning of Feb, but there was no follow through. And since then, the price had fallen back. But it had sparked quite a lot of interest in silver. The iShares Silver Trust, the ETF in question, had seen inflows of around $1 billion, almost $1 billion on the Friday before we saw the squeeze. So there was plenty of retail buying on that Friday. But so far with it returning to perhaps more normal trading, they might be a bit disappointed. But that doesn't mean there aren't still, long-term positive outcomes for silver. We've had a report from an industry body, the Silver Institute, saying that it expects demand, sort of industrial demand, jewelry, everything else for silver to hit an 8-year high this year. And normally, of course, when demand increases, we'd expect to see the price follow suit as well. A wider global recovery in the economy would definitely help silver, as would weakness in the US dollar. We've talked about this a lot before. We have seen very weak US dollar since March. There were signs this year of it turning around. I think that's still a possibility. And if we did see US dollar strength, that would definitely squeeze the price of both silver and gold. But further slides in the dollar can only help the silver price. Personally, I think we will see more gains from silver from here. We'll look at the markets in a minute and see if we can get a trade on. But perhaps we have to temper our expectations about how big those gains could be. Before we jump back onto the platform, let's talk about the levels to watch. So I think the obvious hurdle is around about $30. Big psychological level, and also the high set right at the beginning of this month. In that recovery from those November lows, there have been plenty of support levels left on the upside. So I think if we did see a dip, lots of potential areas to look at for being a buyer in terms of low risk entry. And for me, the first one is just the other side of $26, coming in at $25.85. But as usual, let's put some color on these numbers. Let's take a look on the chart and see if we can set a trade up. So here's our trend on silver. We're on the daily chart now. So I'm picking up on really the March lows, way down below $12 an ounce. Then, of course, we had that run up in August to 30. The price came back down. We've been bumbling around this trend line. It's done a good job of supporting the price. The trend line at the moment is coming in around $25 an ounce, that sort of level. So even if silver got knocked back a couple of dollars from where we're trading at the time of recording, to me, it still looks like a buying opportunity. And actually, the ultimate level, I think, for this trend is these lows. September 24th lows, they were in at 21.65. Then we came back end of November down to 21.87. Let's call it 21.50. So I think it's only if we see silver fall below $21.50, I think, do we have to worry about a much steeper sell-off. So for now, I'm very much in buy the dip modes when it comes to silver. Let's take a look at the indicators, then we'll see if we can set our trade up. So looking at the RSI down here, the last signal we had on the RSI was on that surge up through $30 that proved to be short-lived. The RSI went overbought. At the time of recording, it's just moving above 60%, the RSI. So no real signal there from that one. Let's take a look at the MACD. So here's the MACD on silver. The last signal was a buy signal, end of Jan. Again, ahead of that surge up to $30. It's been a bit flat since then, as maybe the price has been a little bit flat as well. So what I want to do, I want to buy. The only question is, do I buy now? Do I wait for a dip? Do I wait for strength? Let's take this down to an hourly chart and look at things in a bit more detail. So as usual, the first thing I want to think about is, well, where is my stop going to go on silver? I think there are quite a few options here. If you're a buyer now at $27.65, I think you just need to be a bit wary that we do have these highs from the 9th of Feb, around about $27.80, just ahead of $28. So perhaps in the short term, we'll see the price of silver come under a bit of pressure. So perhaps I want to have an order in to wait to be a buyer of weakness. The closest I'd want my stop at the moment, the other side of these 10th of February lows, around 26.60, that sort of area. If I want to give the market a bit more breathing room, I'll go the other side of 26 down here. But I think what I might do, I am going to go the other side of the lows. So we're going back to the middle of Jan here. The other side of the major low before the surge to 30. So the trade I'm going to put on, I want to buy because I think we could well see a retest of 30. Perhaps not in the short term. I might need to be patient, but I don't mind being patient when it comes to trading. We could pick up on this more accelerated trend this year off that $24 low, middle of Jan. So if I go 23.50 for a stop on silver, and what I'd like to do is leave an order to buy if it dips back down. So I'll leave an order to buy in the middle of the recent range. So let's say I go $27.30. So if it drops back 35 cents from where it's trading now, I'm going to be a buyer. I'm going to put my stop in at 23.50. Let's set that trade up. So I'm ready to go. The market's trading at $27.68 at the moment. I want to buy at 27.30. So it's really only if we dip back to where we were at the end of last week. If that order gets filled, put a stop loss. Okay, it's a way away. It's in at $23.50. So my stop's going about $4 away. But if I think the market is going to move through $30, which I think there's a reasonable chance we could see that again, I'm quite happy to sit with the position with a wider stop and look to adjust things if it does break through 30. And that's for our usual risk of £250 or so. Let's place that limit order. So the order's placed by 92 silver at $27.30. And I'm quite happy to be patient on this one. My stop is all the way back here, below those January lows, actually below the mid-January lows there. So I've got a lot of wiggle room on this trade. Let's see if it can get back up to 30. I think if we break 30 and start holding above there, we can then start looking for much more aggressive targets. You know, we had this period from 2012 where silver got as high as about $35. So I think if we can at some point in the next few weeks, next few months, break through 30, we could see much bigger gains to come. That recovery is still going. I'm happy to trade in the direction of the trend, make this more a longer term position and see how it works out. That's it for the update in silver. The recovery is still chugging along. We will see if it can challenge $30 anytime soon. But from me, David Jones and Capital.com, good luck with your trading. For more trading videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel.